Look, let's be very clear. This isn't about Hunter Biden's white privilege. It's about Hunter Biden's Democrat privilege. Because Donald Trump Jr. showed up for 5 congressional subpoenas. There was never this circus where he was subpoenaed by House Democrats and he showed up on the Senate side or showed up at the White House to answer in some fake, phony, lame press conference, not actually going to the House and doing what he was compelled by a subpoena to do. Hunter Biden did that. And then he has the unmitigated gall to show up here when we know that we're going through actually the legislation for contempt with, by the way, Mr. Chairman, we should actually get to the legislation of contempt. The speechifying is great, but let's do our business, members.
And the halls of Congress. Tension fills the air once again. Another heated exchange, another battle over accountability, privilege, and politics. A Republican voice rises, sharp and confident, claiming that this moment isn't about white privilege, but Democrat privilege. He points straight at Hunter Biden, accusing him of disrespecting the institution by ignoring congressional subpoenas, insisting that if any ordinary American had done the same, they would already be in contempt. He paints a picture of double standards, saying that when others were called to testify, they showed up, but Hunter Biden, he claims, turned the process into a spectacle. The words hit hard, echoing through the committee room, accusations flying, tempers rising. But then, calm and deliberate, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez takes the microphone.
As also the Republican side had mentioned in their many raisings of the January 6th committee, that it's not just Hunter Biden, you, me, any individual subject to equal treatment under the law, to be held up to accountability under the law, but it is also these committees and this committee that is subject to oversight and law. We must comply with the law here as well. Now, I may be one of the very few people that actually believes in Congress, in this country. But I do, and many of us do here. And we have an obligation to engage in good faith participation to execute and comply with the subpoena.
Her tone is steady, but her words cut deep. She begins by acknowledging the talk of privilege and accountability, but quickly flips the mirror back toward the committee itself. She reminds everyone that accountability doesn't just apply to the people they investigate, it applies to them too. This committee, she implies, must also follow the law. Her voice carries both frustration and faith. Frustration in the politics of performance, but faith that Congress can still act with integrity. She points out a truth few want to confront, that members of this very committee have submitted falsified evidence, misrepresented closed-door hearings, and even engaged in acts unbecoming of public servants.
You've got members who've engaged in revenge porn in this committee. So it is understandable why Hunter Biden would want to testify in front of the public for the American people to be able to witness that testimony for themselves. You've got members who've defied subpoenas. You've got members who we are 1 year into the term asking what the rules are at the beginning of the committee. The book was given to us on day one. And so what we should do is allow the man to testify.
Her words are both accusation and plea, a reminder that oversight means nothing if it's not done in good faith. Then she brings it all home. She reminds the chairman that he told Hunter Biden he could appear before the American people, that he could speak publicly, and that Hunter Biden took him up on that offer. She argues that the man came willing to testify in front of the nation, and yet, even then, his appearance was turned into a weapon. Her tone softens, but her message stays firm. Oversight cannot be selective. It cannot depend on who holds the gavel or which party has the chair. It must be consistent, transparent, and fair. Otherwise, the entire system collapses into political theater. As she speaks, the room seems to hold its breath. The fire that started with accusations of Democrat privilege now turns into a deeper question: who is truly defending accountability, and who is simply performing it? Ocasio-Cortez ends her remarks with a simple appeal: let the man testify. Let the process play out in the open for the public to see. Because if Congress truly believes in its own power, it shouldn't fear transparency, it should demand it. And with that, she yields her time. The echoes of her words linger, not just in the chamber, but across the nation, a reminder that in the struggle for truth and fairness, the loudest voices don't always carry the most weight sometimes. It's the calm, deliberate ones that expose the real cracks in the system. The back and forth continued, but now the focus tightened on process, on what actually binds a committee and who really decides the rules. A member rose and reminded colleagues that a chairman's promise, however emphatic, doesn't carry the force of law. What matters, he said, is the written subpoena, the document signed by the clerk of the House. Words can be loud. Paper is what governs. He pointed to the sequence that followed the House's vote to open an impeachment inquiry, noting that one of the committee's first actions was to subpoena Hunter Biden. From this perspective, the narrative is straightforward. A subpoena was issued, the committee expected compliance, and the man at the center of the inquiry did not comply in the way the committee sought. Instead, he staged a public appearance on the Senate side, delivered remarks at a press event coordinated with a member of the House, and then left while the committee debated contempt. To some in the room, that looked like evasion, a calculated public performance instead of a private legal response. The hearing record itself absorbed more than speeches. A legal opinion and a news piece were entered into the record. Arguments about impeachment precedent and the contours of oversight were suddenly bound to paper, as well as to rhetoric. The debate moved from who spoke loudest to what the documents would say when anyone looked back months from now. Then the line of argument widened. Republicans framed this as only part of a much larger pattern, a portrait of the Biden family not as private business people, but as a political dynasty allegedly entwined with foreign money. They contrasted that portrait with another president who, they argued, had a sprawling international hotel and real estate portfolio, and yet, according to them, was never subject to the same scrutiny over business ties. It wasn't merely about who took money or who took a speech. It was about how oversight is applied and whether anyone is immune from inquiry. Voices rose in objection, interruptions and points of order weaving through the testimony like static. The moment underscored a procedural truth. Committee hearings are as much about precedent and process as they are about personalities. Anyone paying attention could see how quickly policy questions get overlaid with political claims, each side trying to cement a narrative that would survive beyond the day's headlines. At the heart of the exchange was a plea for clarity. If Congress is to demand testimony, subpoenas must mean something. If committees are to accuse, they must base those accusations on evidence that can stand up to scrutiny. Otherwise, hearings risk collapsing into a looping cycle of accusation and counteraccusation, each claim amplifying the next without ever resolving the central facts. The chapter closed on the same uneasy note it began with, the question of whether the machinery of oversight could be trusted to do its job, impartially, transparently, and effectively. For viewers, the takeaway is unsettlingly simple. When process blurs into performance, the public loses more than a headline. It loses confidence that institutions exist to uncover truth rather than stage it.